Welcome to Measurably Better Learning, the podcast built for learning and development professionals. Whether you're an instructional designer, L&D professional, or corporate leader, get ready for insights and ideas that will transform your approach to learning, training, and development. So let's dive in.
All right. Welcome to this episode of the Measurably Better Learning podcast. My host today is Dr. Jerry Zanstra, and today we're talking about marketing. Which is right. I thought this was a learning podcast.
Right. Of course, we're going to talk about marketing.
Right. Well, it's kind of an interesting topic. You and I have talked in the past, with clients, and there's a marketing aspect to learning. Mm-hmm. And that's what we really want to focus on today. Why is marketing, it's often a missing ingredient. It's not something learning professionals think about. So in general, why should we care about marketing as a learning and development team?
Yeah, it's a really good question. You probably remember a number of weeks ago, I asked you and several other instructional designers how many marketing courses you took in your instructional design program, and no one took anything. And there's some fairness to that.
Of course, yeah.
Right? I mean, your job is somebody makes a decision, maybe you're the person making the decision, to create and release a particular topic or learning experience, and that's your job. You gather the SMEs, you put together a schedule, you do a needs analysis, curriculum map if needed, you do all the parts and pieces, you do the design, you do the development, and then it's like building a house, right? A house builder doesn't think much about how to market the house.
They're building it for an owner.
Unless he or she is selling it, in which case they have to think, okay, what's the curb appeal? And I think it's an unusual thing to think about marketing, but it's a necessary thing to think about marketing. And it could be that maybe some people in learning, training, and development have the idea that marketing is not really what they want to do.
Yeah, and I think there's even an inherent, if you're in this business, it's because you love it. So my problem was always, if I build it, they'll come because it's so amazing. Why would somebody not want to take this?
I made this food, you should eat it.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So you're either maybe not interested or you don't really think there's a need for it because you just built this amazing training session. Why wouldn't somebody want to take it? But we all know that that's not really reality.
It's not. I remember a number of years ago, you and I were on a webinar, and one of us made an offhanded remark about marketing learning, and immediately the chat and the questions just came flying in because everybody said, we don't talk about this. We should talk about this. We think our job ends with it's ready for delivery.
It's
put in your LMS. It's released out. We move on. And I have that too. I mean, a lot of times, if you or I were writing an article or doing whatever, you kind of do the thing, you move on to the next thing. We don't really think much about the marketing side of it, and we certainly should, because if you change the word from, is it your responsibility to market what you've built? Probably not. Is it your responsibility to help get the attention of the learners?
Right. Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you have my attention. I'm listening. I hadn't really thought about that. And so I think that marketing oftentimes is an essential element, but it's just not one we pay much attention to, and we should.
Right. And the unfortunate thing, too, is that if we do think about it, it's often a week before release as opposed to...
Or you think about it after you've released it and it's not performing well and nobody's really taking it, and you go, what happened? Well, now maybe we got to think a little bit about marketing this.
Right. Whereas it really needs to happen at the beginning of the project. And there's different things you can do, I think, to force yourself. I mean, we often put some sort of question in our needs assessment. When we're working with an internal division of a business, or you're working with a client, whatever it would be. How do you want to market this? Maybe the answer is not at all, but at least we're asking the question and prompting that thinking, and that's before anything else is done. That's a part of the needs assessment.
And there's different levels of marketing.
Yes.
because you might have a compliance thing. The expectation is that everybody takes it. It's high-low training. It's bloodborne pathogen, right? Do you really need to market that? Probably not.
Probably
because people are used to it. It's compliance. You have to do it. You have to be compliant. The company needs to be compliant. There are other things that are more mission critical and essential, and frankly, just have higher profiles where there are lots of eyes on this. That might be one where you'll want to get very sophisticated in your marketing efforts because it might be a change in the core process of your company, or you might have some safety issues that, wow, this thing really rose to the top. We really need to get people's attention here. I think in the second half we're going to come back and talk about attention. And again, if we swap out marketing and just think about how do we get our learners' attention, maybe we'll be a little more comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. I really do think it's a lot about framing the question. When you say marketing to most learning professionals, it's instantly, that's business, or I don't have any background in that, or I'm not interested, but really we're just talking about how, honestly, it's self-serving. How are you going to get the attention of your learners who you're seeking to engage?
Yeah.
So it's a great way to reframe it. I really like thinking about that. And yeah, we're going to come back and think about how do we get their attention.
Imagine a world where every training session, every learning module, and every translated document is aligned with your company's unique goals and global ambitions. Welcome to Ingenuity, where we don't just talk about elevating your corporate learning, we make it happen. At Ingenuity, we understand the heart of your business is its people. That's why we specialize in creating custom learning solutions and translation services that are not just effective, but are designed specifically for your business's global needs. Let us show you how learning cannot be just better, but measurably better, with solutions tailored just for you. Learn more in the description below.
All right, well, we're back, and one of the things we briefly touched on was attention. And reframing, is an important concept, how to reframe the marketing conversation into getting our learners' attention. There's a few things that go into that, right? Like when we start talking about attention span, that's a whole cultural phenomenon now. So, what are we talking about? We're trying to consider getting our learners' attention.
It's built right into our language. I'm going to pay attention. And I love the Spanish expression is I'm going to lend you my attention. And it's really a cool expression. The idea is that it's an exchange. It's economics. I'm exchanging something, but I expect something in return. I'm going to pay attention to you because there's a value exchange. And I really love that. And when you think about attention in that way, there's so many things you can pay attention to, right?
Yeah,
there's so many things, or more strictly, you can give your attention to. The world's gotten more complex, but if you think of your learner, sort of go back to your learner profile or persona, think about all the things trying to exchange for attention in that person's life in a particular day. And in the middle of all of that noise and all of that, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, you're trying to break in.
Right.
And that's not easy. And so, I shared an article with you recently where people in marketing were talking about attention as the most valuable real estate, more valuable than currency. Now, of course, these are marketing.
Right. I was going
to. That's what they do for a living.
Of course, yes.
Fine. But the point is valid that getting a person's attention, and it's not just getting their attention. I think it's you design learning in a particular way, interactive and engaging and engrossing and so on, because you're trying to keep their attention.
Yes, keeping it till the end.
But once you have it, it's easier to keep than it is to initially get it. So before I've engaged with this thing and found out, wow, this is a wonderful experience, how do you get people's attention? And you and I and many of the people listening to this podcast are aware of research and fairly controversial research that says that our attention span. I read the other day, I think I shared the article with you, that the attention span of an adult in the United States is now 8 seconds, which is shorter than a goldfish and makes us Dory, Finding Nemo. I think, right? So that, so I mean, you read that, and first of all, it's horrifying.
Right.
But you and I have had this conversation. That's not really
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say there's sort of a bit of a difference between what we might call like pop psychology kind of a thing, which is, people have attention spans of a goldfish. They can't remember anything anymore. And our brains can't pay attention. They can't focus. And the interesting thing, I think, from a cognitive perspective is that really is a myth. Like our brains aren't, in many ways, they haven't changed. What's happened is we have too many distractions. And so we could, if we didn't allow those distractions in, still choose to focus
So our
for a
cognitive
long
abilities,
time. Yes.
Our cognitive abilities, you believe, are innately what they were before. What we have is just a whole lot of people trying to transact and get our attention. And you and I were talking about this the other day. Movies have gotten longer, not shorter. But once you get me to pay my money, buy my popcorn, get my bottled water, go sit in the theater, I can sit and pay attention. If people really had only the ability to cognitively process 8 seconds worth of information, a 3-hour superhero movie makes no
absolutely
sense.
not. Right.
You couldn't follow it at all.
Right.
Sometimes I'm like, what just
That's
happened?
a separate issue,
Yeah,
too.
that's a different issue, right? But it's not that we can't use our cognitive ability and cognitively process.
Correct.
It's that attention piece,
Right.
which is challenging.
Right. And I mean, I will say that I think as adults, especially depending on what sort of generation you are or where you grew up, I have found myself, I know that my brain can do it, but I've had to really work to retrain it again. Like I will sit and focus and read something for 15, 20, an hour, whatever, as opposed to scrolling and being distracted. But our learners can do it. But on the other hand, of course, we have to have this understanding that most of them choose not to because there are distractions vying for their time and attention that
and they're legit.
Of course.
I mean, I have meetings, I have emails to send, I have a spreadsheet to fill out, I got to write this thing, there's this phone call I have to do, there's this production thing that I'm part of, I have a throughput expectation in my job. I have all these things, and no one is prioritizing learning.
Right.
Everybody wants their thing done first. Learning sometimes becomes like, I'm brain dead now, so I'll just...
Exactly.
This is the last thing on my list.
And it's often, unfortunately, the expectation that you will do that over and above. So you put in your time, and then learning is not allotted for. It's something extra. So we already have that built in. I don't really want to be here in the first place. So first you have to overcome that, right?
Well, it depends on the learning culture. If you have a bad learning culture and bad learning experiences, I'm not looking forward to this.
No.
I know this is a two-part
we're gonna
podcast, so the next section we're going to get into really practical stuff that we've seen work well to get learner attention.
Yes, for our listeners, make sure you tune into the next episode because we're going to talk about some really practical examples. So thank you for your time, and just this discussion of attention is
I'd like to point
important.
out I've paid attention to
You
you
have
for
paid
more than a goldfish.
and
so.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Before we wrap up the show, if you're looking to dive deeper, we've got tons of free downloads, L&D resources, and details about upcoming webinars that you won't want to miss. They're found in the episode description. Plus, if you ever want to chat with either one of us, now's your chance. You can find links in the episode description to connect directly with Miriam or me. We're here to answer your questions and to discuss all things learning and development. And speaking of questions, we love hearing from you. Whether it's a question or a comment or a topic you're curious about, or if you just want to join the conversation, drop us a comment on your favorite social media channel. Your input shapes our shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. It's the best way to ensure you never miss out on our latest episode. We're excited to continue to transform learning into a measurable success with you.
Until next time.